yesterday my colleague, Mr. Paprocki, and I were kind of giving you kind of an idea of this adult faith formation, and it was about like a 30,000 feet. I don't know what, are you going to go a little more in the weeds today, Joe? You're going to go in the weeds a little bit more today?
Definitely.
Okay, yeah, well this is what I'm going to do.
Weedy for
I got an email yesterday from one of you who basically said, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly happened and how you did this whole thing? I'm going to do that very specifically. I also am very welcome to your feedback. I mean, I get this call out of the middle of nowhere from Lafayette, Indiana, and I'm like, where in the world is Lafayette, Indiana? And then I asked Evelyn, I'm like, okay, this is very nice, I'm very flattered. How did you find me? And she said there was a committee, and is Groot, is it? Am I pronouncing it right?
Groot, like
Groot,
Groot.
okay. She had seen a posting on, it was on the Catholic-in-Indiana website. They have a forum. And apparently my name came up there, and she told Evelyn, and Evelyn called me, so here I am, and I'm delighted to be here. This has been fun. I also, a month later, get a call from the National Lutheran Conference of America, and they want me to give it in Orlando next year. So any feedback that you can give me is, I'm a teacher, we're used to getting evaluated. Do not hesitate, no pride of ownership here, rip it apart, let me know what's good, let me know what's not, let me know how to tweak it, because we're going to try and we're going to have a second Reformation. We're going to bring Lutherans back, so anything you can do to kind of help me and tweak it a little bit, I'd be very grateful. Let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Together.
Lord, you have entrusted us as stewards of your creation. May your goodness, wisdom, and love be present among us today. As we conclude these days together, we ask for your guidance, wisdom, and support. We pray for hope. Come stir our hearts and renew our faith. We pray for vision. May your light reveal how our time here can lead to a greater realization of a kingdom we cannot yet see. We pray for unity, build in us a deep respect for one another, so that your church may be one. As we move back to the vineyards from whence we came, let us recall that all that we want to accomplish is for your great glory and for the magnificent people whom you sent us to serve. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Okay. I want to, again, kind of go up to about 30,000 feet and talk a little bit more about who's in the pews and who's not and why that may be. I want to pull a line from Sherry Waddell. God doesn't have grandchildren, and what exactly that means, and if God doesn't have any grandchildren, what are the implications of that for us in our parishes and our adult faith formation programs, and what's working where around the country, and what we did at St. Monica, and kind of what we're seeing. All right, so that's where we are. Who's in the pews? 30% of Americans that are raised Catholic and are practicing. And the Pew Charitable Trust did this, and they defined practicing as if you attend Mass once a month. Pretty low bar. This is the interesting point. Half of those are at Mass at every given weekend, so it's not the same people that are in your pews. There's a turnover going. And that's important, especially when you start talking about things like hospitality, because when they walk in the door, the first person that they meet is your parish. And if you read the book Rebuilt, the interesting story about Rebuilt and where that whole thing started, how many people understand, how many people have heard this story about Rebuilt and parking? Okay, let me repeat it. There was, Father Mike was investigating, like, why aren't people coming? So he purposely asked some people to come in who hadn't been to church in a while. And a woman came in, and he says, why do you come to church? Why don't you come to church on Sunday? He says, all right, Father, I have two small children. One is 6 and one is 6 and one is 8. So at 5 minutes, your Mass is at 10 o'clock. At 5 minutes before 10, your parking lot is empty. Between 5 of 10 and 10:05, Your parking lot looks like, excuse me, the Indianapolis 500. Cars coming in, screeching this hall, almost running me over. I am fearing for my life walking across the parking lot. As I walk across the parking lot, people are almost knocking me and my children over trying to get to church. I get to church and you have two sets of doors. I have two kids and a bag over my shoulder, and I'm walking and the person right in front of me goes over and the door, boom, the door slams right in my face and I'm like this. I go into that front door and I'm looking for a parish bulletin, and I go to somebody and I go, excuse me, do you have a parish bulletin? And the guy goes, look, I'm just the usher, I don't have that stuff. Father, I haven't walked through the second door and I'm angry. You throw things in my face, you're rude, you're dangerous. Now, tell me again, I haven't heard a homily, I haven't heard a hymn, I haven't heard anything. Why do I want to come to your church? And he realized that the biggest problem at Timonium, Maryland had to do with parking. And he said, and he was angry. So he got his committee together and said, okay, I don't know where we're going to start. I don't know where we should start, but I tell you where we're going to start. We're going to start with parking. So the first thing he did is he got about 9 of the biggest bruisers in the parish, gave them orange vests, and they started directing parking out in the parking lot. It was a step. You do not know who's going to walk in your door at any given week, but they're coming and they're going to be there. And those first 20 steps, those first couple of minutes are really going to be crucial. 38% of the people hold on to their Catholic identity, but they seldom or never attend Mass. 32% do not consider themselves Catholic anymore. Who are those 32%? 3% of them are part of a non-Christian faith, Jewish, Muslim, whatever. 14% are the nuns, N-O-N-E. When they fill out a questionnaire, are you Catholic, are you atheist? The last one is none. They're the nuns. Big time in terms of the millennials. 15% are part of some Protestant faith tradition. I talked about that yesterday. Okay. I'll give you an example. I have 4,000 parishioners in St. Monica. If I take 15% of that who've left the Catholic faith and gone to another tradition, that's 600 people. My Mass attendance every weekend is 800. If I could get them back, I double my Mass attendance. If I could get a portion of them back, like the one gentleman talked about yesterday, that would have a dramatic impact on my parish. Okay, why did they leave? Not sure. But this might give us an idea. Evangelical Protestant brothers and sisters, they are very attuned to the millennials. They look and say, what do they want? And let's give it to them. Extremely market-oriented. They always are considering reaching out to them. Why? It's about getting saved. People in the Reformation, and with Reformation theology, it's all about, every person has a personal decision to make. You're a sinner. You have to make a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and be saved, and they have that personal relationship with Christ. This is part of their DNA. It's not part of ours, although it's becoming more and more the case. What do? Our religious identity is inherited, given from family, etc., and it's come through Catholic schools, prep, Catholic youth programs. Okay? We don't go to somebody and say, you need to personally have a relationship with Christ. What do? We talked about this yesterday. We franchise it. Okay? It's not a direct relationship. We kind of pass it down somewhere. So this is what Sherry's talking about when she talks about grandchildren. Okay? We also assume for many, many years that the religious practice remains stable through one's life. There are, and we found this in the MOVE study, I said there are people in those different categories, there's different thresholds, but the other thing that Willow Creek found that there were 2 categories. The one I talked about yesterday, the people who were disenfranchised, like 25%, they're ready to leave. The other is a significant group, and it can be between 15 and 20%, and they are called stuck, where they go to church every single week, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 30, 40, 45 years they've gone to church. Their faith has been on the same level the whole time. When they dug deeper into that, they found out that there is something kind of dark there. There's an addiction, There's illicit, immoral activities, there's affairs, there's something there that's really, really dark, and they know it, but they feel that they don't want to do anything more in terms of their faith until they won't until they deal with this thing, and the thing is they are not dealing with it. So that's why they're religiously stuck. And that was a really fascinating thing for them to find out, like, wow, how do you deal with something like that? Bottom line is, there's people in our parishes that are stuck, and they're dealing with some really heavy stuff. How do we touch them? I talked about the women's group, battle group in my parish, Walking with Purpose. They're in their 4th year now, and every year they pick a theme. This year's theme for them is healing. Now, these ladies meet every single week for 2 hours for 9 months. They've been meeting for 3 years, and all of a sudden what they're finding out is everybody's hurting. And people are hurting at a significant level, and what they're saying is, how can we touch those people and touch us and allow the grace of the Holy Spirit and the balm of Gilead to touch people so that we can start some healing. So those are the people that are stuck, okay? And a lot of them, that stability is part of that. All right, where does this come from in terms of the Catholic Church? Since the Renaissance, we were highly influenced by the power of education. Good thing. Millions and millions of Catholics have received Catholic education, and even though it's a different, if it's a different animal and needs to become a different animal, probably a little bit in the years going forward, it's really had a positive influence. But the idea that all of a sudden you send them to a Catholic school and they're going to have a personal relationship with Christ is a fallacy. Okay. The strategy has been childhood catechesis, sacramental initiation. The problem, and this is from a Notre Dame study, CCD youth groups, Catholic grade high school, make zero difference or little difference in terms of guaranteeing that they are going to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and they are going to stay within the Catholic faith. There are some things that are working. Kairos retreats, search retreats, Newman centers, having really big impacts. Notre Dame, their ACE program, their Vision program, Steubenville, Life Team. These are having some impacts. Okay, so there are some good things that are happening. The Eucharist is not going to bring them back. Sacraments with their children is not going to bring them back. Oh, when they get married, they want to have a kid baptized. You're going, you'll come to church? Not necessarily. Okay. So here's the question. If you know that, what's the implications about your parish? The programs that you're running, the programs you're considering, the money that you're spending, where are you spending that money, where are you putting your resources? This was the question that group that I had were talking about. It's saying, all right, if this is the data, then we need to let's intentionally think about where we're going to put our time and our talent. Okay, the bad news. Mass attendance depends on a personal relationship with God. 48% of the Catholics do not believe, that's practicing, not practicing. 48% of Catholics do not believe that is possible. And if you talk to them about having a personal relationship with an almighty transcendent God, they look at you like, what? It is more pronounced in younger versus older. The other bad news. Millions of America do not know that a Catholic personal relationship with Jesus Christ is normative. It's called a kerygma. Mm-hmm. They need to be evangelized first, then receive sacraments, then be catechized. We've done it in reverse. Here's the good news, and this is what we're surprising. Millions of Americans are looking for a religious identity of some kind. They're seeking, they might say, well, I'm spiritual, not religious. You ask them what that means, they have no idea. But they're obviously identifying the fact that there is something out there that is transcendent that they want to tap into. Millions of America are Catholic, but they're unsure about that idea of a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Low threshold, looking for somehow and some way to be able to climb up those threshold ladders. Millions of America are not Catholic, but have said in questionnaires they are open to the Catholic faith. Millions of Americans, this is amazing. When they fill the questionnaires out and they say, what religion are you? They say Catholic. They've never been baptized, they've never been confirmed. But there is something about our music, our art, Mother Teresa, John Paul, St. Francis, whatever it is that they say, oh, that's me. It was an amazing find. And And they're searching for us. So, where's the on-ramp? How do we make that happen? I'm seeing smiles. It's good news. It's optimistic. This is nothing new. We think this and know this officially, and it's in the Catechism. The Catechism talks about stages of development. They have something in Catechism 1427 called first conversion. Jesus Christ calls us to conversion. What is conversion? Going from pre-trust to trust, from trust to seeking, etc., etc. This is called as an essential part of the proclamation of the kingdom. Sherry talks about it again and again and again. She says, you've got to have a prayer team and just talk about the kerygma. And she'll give you like 5 lines. Here's the kerygma in 5 sentences, okay? And there is something about just saying, Adam and Eve fall away from grace, relationship is serpent-centered. At some point in time, Jesus comes to reestablish a relationship. Now we have a chance to get back in heaven if you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. There it is. She says, if you say that, and I can tell you from first-hand experience, I heard that and I said, I'm going to try that. I went back, I preached a straight kerygma homily, plain vanilla. People come to the back of church. Wow, that was great. I never thought of that. Sherry says, in just the kerygma, it's like the word. It's not just a story. There's a power of the Holy Spirit that gets released and touches people's hearts in some crazy, mysterious way when we preach it. And that's what they're talking about here. Address first to those who do not believe. Baptism is the first place in the fundamental conversion. And then we renounce evil and gain salvation. Again, like I said, the announcement, this whole idea of the announcement of the kerygma. And then the Catechism in 1428 says there's something called a second conversion. Christ's call to conversion continues throughout the lives of Christians. This second conversion is a task for the whole church, clasping sinners to herself, realizing that we are in purification, penance, and renewal. And it is conversion not just of a human work. Again, this is the work of the Holy Spirit. This is where that prayer team comes in, where all of a sudden strange and weird and wonderful things start to happen. Okay? Where is this happening? And where is your church? Average parish culture, we're down here in the earliest passive stage of pre-discipleship. I said, if you want to put a number on that, it's 70% are your pre-trust, and 70% of your people in the pews are probably in trust or one of those first 2 or 3 stages. Average evangelical, when I'm saying evangelical, I'm saying evangelical Protestant church. It's probably in here. They're not disciples. They're kind of like probably in those middle stages a little bit higher. And then you have places like Christ the King in Ann Arbor, where when they've done the surveys, 65% of them have identified themselves in some kind of the upper discipleship stages. This is one of those parishes where I raised my hand and said, how long does that take? And they said, 15, 20 years. Okay. Now I have a realistic assessment of how long that takes. But they've done a tremendous job. All right, so this is what this is to which I am referring. Okay, so how do you move people up the thresholds? I'm glad you asked. Remember when the bishop was talking about priests that, are like 50% active, 100%? These guys are like 20. They don't do that much. Travel around the country. No, I'm kidding. This is Michael White and Tom Cochran. They're ones I talked to you about the parking lot, Timonium, Maryland. They are traveling around the country, and one of the things that they will tell you is do not pull the rebuilt book off the shelf and try and do it in your parish. Take maybe a portion. It's not an all, it's not, there's no silver bullets here. You may use our hospitality person, but your worship might be more classical rather than contemporary. But what they say is start somewhere and have the conversation. Same thing with Maryland. I understand several parishes over here went to the Divine Renovation. Anybody gone to the conference? Okay, I heard a couple of people did. He's starting to get some traction. What he basically did was basically blow up his whole religious education program and start from scratch. He started to go around the country, slightly different approach. But he's also saying the same thing. He said, look, this is what worked for me. Maybe you can take something from here. But again, you take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, depending on your parish culture, and try and start, and then just see what happens over the course of time. So these are 2 examples. Here's another one. Cute little parish down Lancaster Avenue, about 15 miles from Villanova University. Come on, I'll show you how to get a really good cheesesteak. Okay. What did we do? As I said, I walked into a parish that was not collapsing, but it was hurting. There were some financial issues. We had some pretty significant building issues that we didn't even know about. We started to take care of that within the first 2 years that I was there. I just finished year 5. And then around year 2, 2.5 is when I started having questions like, okay, I see this is going to work, but what does Jesus Christ with this parish look like in 5 years, and if we disappear tomorrow, would anybody miss us? So I got about 20 parishioners, and I said, help me answer those questions. And we prayed for a year and a half, and we met every single month, and we just had conversations and just kind of talked about it. I love those people. Those people love me. And you want to talk about yesterday, how you start forming discipleships, start with a small group like that. And it's just, if nothing else, you'll have a support faith system that will carry you for a number of years in the future. And that's what this group has become for me. We looked around the country. We talked to Matt Mallon. We didn't talk to Mallon. We went down to Timonium. The neighborhood parish had gone up to Mallon. We talked to them. So we started looking around and said, what is everybody doing? What's working? What's not working? Okay? And we said, based on our conversation with Catholic leadership, look, don't try and do everything. Just like pick a couple of things, stick with it long term, and fasten your seatbelts for the long haul. But if you stick with it, you'll find that there will be progress made. Okay, then we shared it with the parish staff, talked to another 20 parishioners, key leaders in the parish, and went and had a town hall meeting and started to say, all right, this is where we're going to start. It was a little rough at the start, and then over the course of 5-6 months, we started to kind of get an idea and put it down on paper. What did I do with those people? I basically took Cherry's book, and I just grabbed about 7 topics. And we talked about topic 1 in June, and we talked about this in July, and we talked about this in August. We talked about God has no grandchildren, all those statistics I've showed you the last 2 days. We put this up here. That was basically to do 2 things. One was to really put people in reality world so that they know what's really going on out there. And then the second thing was to say, if we're going to do anything, let's make sure we have good data behind it. The idea of vocations, let's make sure we put money in where there's fruit, not structures. Talk about priorities and the ideas that people in different stages need different things. It's not one size fits all. And then we talked about the idea of the vocation, intentional discipleship, and spiritual stages, and what were called threshold conversations. This is read for a reason. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. We talked about the evangelical gap. This is what people believe, and yet their practices are different. How do you fill that gap in? What would St. Monica look like if we took this whole thing seriously? The idea of proclaiming a kerygma, holding threshold conversations, building a culture of discipleship, having people that witness rather than just talk about it. And then look around and say, okay, where is fruit being done? And we started calling around, and where is it happening? And we found it's happening in North Dakota, Chicago, Southern California, Lansing, Michigan. This is really a hot place right now. Lots of good things happening in Lansing, okay? And then what would a growing and maturing faith be? Now, that was, like I said, that was 7 topics. We got to topic in the 5th month, and we started talking about threshold conversations. And they said, Father, what's a threshold conversation? So I kind of described it. And they said, we still don't get it. I said, okay, I'll tell you what, next month, let's come back, and we'll do it. So the next month, we sat down, and I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. And I grabbed this one woman. Her name's Chris. Chris is a pediatric oncologist. She has a double PhD in cancer research. She travels to London twice a month to help do work with some companies over there. Chris is a brilliant, brilliant woman. Her favorite thing is the church is teaching 2nd graders. She has this talent to take a really complex idea and make it really simple. Chris hated our parish. Hated it. Her 2 daughters are geniuses. And the Catholic school could not accommodate them. She sent them to public school. She was a member of the parish council. A woman in the parish council one time screamed at Chris because she wasn't sending her daughters to St. Monica Catholic School, and stood up and said to Chris, you know what your problem is? You're a bad mother. Chris says she stood there like this and left and wept. She was so angry. I asked Chris to be on that committee. And Chris sat in a chair, and Leo sat across from her, and Chris told her story. And one of the things was that when her dad died of cancer at age 14. And she stood in her dad's grave and said, I am going to beat you, pointing to cancer. I will find out what you are, and I will defeat you. And that has driven her. And she always felt, from an early age, that the Holy Spirit and religion was going to play a part of this. But her parish was not helping. And she shared this story. And Leo, which is what you do in a threshold conversation, for 20 minutes sat there and went, Chris, hold on, say that again. That was important. Why was that important to you, Chris? And there was silence in the room. And they finished. I get choked up. And then they said, let's do it again. So Leo's wife, Aji, who hadn't gone to confession in a long, long, long time, and came back to the church to a confession, all right? Went to a priest had no idea what the impact was. She is the biggest advocate for confession. She sat down, and she talked to her faith story, and Chris's husband was the receiver. Went on for 20 minutes. And if you looked around the room, there were tears coming down people's faces. And Chris said, how do we do this? Look, we all felt this, Father. How do we make this happen to all of our parishioners? And I said, I have no idea. Remember I said, here's the line? The faith after that line was a different animal than beforehand. The word that kept coming over again and again and again in our conversation was the word encounter. And so we said, how do we encounter Christ? How do we make this encounter happen? It's going to happen for different people. So this is what we came up with. This is what we're going to do at St. Monica. What's our goal? Get people to heaven with a special emphasis in people in the towns of Berlin, Devon, Tredyffrin, and Easttown. If that is our job, then a life-changing encounter is absolutely critical. And let's pick 3 things. Let's help people encounter Christ in liturgy, in service to others, and in the Word. And this is what it looks like in our parish. In liturgy, this is directly stolen from Amazing Parish. What makes dynamic liturgies? 3 things. Hymnody, homily, or hospitality. So we said, okay, we're going to continue our excellence in music quality, which is fairly traditional, but there has been a call for something a little more contemporary. Let's try and do that. Let's put a liturgy committee together to do that. What makes a great homily? It should be audible, passionate, organized, understandable, and relevant. So, let's ensure that the preaching is relevant and provide timely feedback to presiders. And Chris had this great idea, and I'm going to get to it in a minute. Hospitality, the rebuild thing, okay? Let's connect with newcomers. When people come into the parish, let's talk to them. Hi, welcome, etc. Maybe do it a month later, maybe do it a year later. Just touch them a little bit. And develop a welcome culture to all parishioners. That's when that woman came forward and said, Father, if that's the case, I'll run that hospitality ministry. Came up with an interesting idea here. Chris had seen this thing in the Orlando airport. It's a kiosk. It's got 4 buttons. Dark green, light red, dark red. Maybe you've seen it. Okay. If the homily is supposed to be audible, how audible is the homily today? Boom. And I can get some feedback and we can pull it up and we can see. Bob, you keep saying it's fine. I've got 80% of the parishioners that are saying they can't hear the homily. All right, so adjust the microphone, please. We're going to do that. We're going to have 5 questions here, 5 here, 5 here. So it'll be question 1, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. We're going to go through all 15, then we're going to start all over again. First time we go through, we've got a baseline. Second time we go through, we compare it to the first time and say, how did we do? There are people in my staff that just think this is a terrible idea and they think it's schmaltzy. Too bad. I'm a marketing guy, all right? And I keep saying, what are you afraid of? Okay? But this is a way that we're going to try and touch our parishioners. Again, it's data-driven decisions. So that's liturgy. Service. We realize that our people do not want to go all over the world. So what they want to do, they want to do something in the parish, helping other people in Easttown, which is, if somebody needs something, there are parishioners, help them out. The Merry Widows, they are. They're literally a group of widows, and I always know when they've had a meeting in my rectory, because the place smells like perfume. And the blue recyclable bins are full of wine bottles. And all they go down to Villanova for courses, they go to Nova Scotia for cruise. They are a great group. They heard this and they say, we're going to take a ministry. We're going to be your bereavement committee, which we didn't have. And they're magnificent. We're also going to use our facilities to help people in Berlin, Trinidad, and Easttown. Is there organizations out there that just need a space? Let's invite them. And then maybe there's something else. Kensington is one of the worst neighborhoods in Philadelphia. It is the epicenter of the opium crisis in Philly, and maybe even in the tri-state area. Walking with Purpose women, they said, we're going to Kensington. Okay? Going out, encountering Christ through others. The other one was encountering the Word. And this is where I'm going to get a little bit more detail. Okay, what does that look like? This was what was working. According to the Disciple Maker Index, the DMI, all right, Walking with Purpose, like I said, was a phenomenon, a gratuitous gift of the Lord. TMI, a little bit smaller, but getting some traction. Same thing with our teens and same things with our kids. Where all of a sudden they're starting to develop an interest in things called Lectio Divina. Okay, so that's what's working. Can we build on that? One of the things that we said is on-ramps, off-ramps. You need to give them a pathway. If there's an alpha, you need a beta. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we had a bunch of conversations back and forth, and then all of a sudden one of the guys from my group, his name's Tom, he's on my leadership group, he said, wait a minute, Father, if we're looking for steps and we're looking for something in here, something in here, we've already got some. All right? So let me go over these in detail. First phase. He said, Father, we've done alpha. We did it 2 years ago, let's do it again. All right, it's kind of like the on-ramp. Walking with Purpose, you want something for people who are the on-ramps for the women, and that means you for the men, we already do it. All right, it's done. And then our youth group was going to say, all right, is there something that we can do to start forming the adults, or are there adults that are helping us with youth that maybe are just in the beginning stages? Can we help them? Second one, the ones who are in trust and start going into seeking. Where's Patty? There it is, baby. Talk to Patty about Formed. Remember I talked about those who are in the curious phase? They're not coming to church, they're not talking to anybody, but they're online looking. We decided to purchase that. We're going to pay for Patty's salary, all these benefits, and we're going to make this available for the entire parish. We said, all right, for all this, if there's a lot of curious people out there, then let's make that available to them. Symbolon, again from Augustine Institute, we're going to use that as the RCIA basis. Walking with Purpose, That Man Is You, and Family and Discipleship, they have basically more advanced programs, so, all right, there's the second phase. Third phase are those who are seeking descending disciples. People are going to say, Father, what am I supposed to do? Why was I born? That's where we're going to use Called and Gifted 1, and just build on all these other ones. There is a group out of Harrisburg, as I said yesterday, Stewardship and Mission. It's this very simple 1-hour men's gospel group. When people say, I'm looking for something more, and they're a guy, and they say, that man is you is really not what I'm interested in. I say, all right, Starbucks Saturday, 7 o'clock, I'll see you there. I'll buy the first cup. What do you want, latte? So that's that. And then again, Jason here is my youth director, and he has not put this together yet. He's looking at the first two, but at some point within the next year or two, what does phase 3 look like for that? Sean, where are you? Raise your hand. Okay. Apparently, this is something that you've used in your diocese. Again, it's a spiritual gift inventory, asking the question, why was I born, what am I good at, where's God calling me to? You can use this, you can use this, either one works. But it's basically an evaluative instrument where now you can have a conversation with the potential disciple across from you and say, okay, what are you good at? Let's do that. If you're not good at it, don't say yes to that. Okay, if you're tone deaf, please don't say you're going to be a lector, and don't say that you're going to be a cantor. Right? You're probably called to something else. Okay, and then the mature discipleship. Called and Gifted 2, Having taken the inventory, you have an hour, you kind of have an hour interview, and then you meet with a small group, and you kind of like try out your cameras and see if it's working. Ananias training, I'm in conversation with Catherine Coolidge from Catherine Asiana Institute. They're going to, like I said, they're rolling that out in January. We're talking about, right now we've got a lot of stuff on the agenda, so we kind of push this off into next year, but I think it's something when you're talking about walking with someone on a one-on-one basis, that might be something that we're going to look at. And then, again, youth missionary team. We sent people to Steubenville last year, sent them to this year. These are our mini disciples. How do we work with them? And then small group leaders and catechists. Let me just go a little bit more into detail on that one, because I know the youth is very important to some people. You can come up here later if you can't see it and take a look. What did we have a couple years ago? We had 3 kinds of religious education. We have a 2-week intensive course that we have found to be very effective. How do we know that? Because parents have said, Father, for those 2 weeks, all we did at the dinner table was talk about religion. We've never done that in our lives. Our kids came back excited to talk about the church. So we do that. We had traditional CCD, desks and chairs, religious education teacher up front. That was on Monday night. And then we had kind of like a small group, alpha-looking type of thing, which was for the children on Sundays. Why would they pick this? Whatever sports program fit it. Sure, so that's where it was. You know. Does it fit their sports program, their activities? Okay. So we looked at that and said, all right, what's working, what's not? This is working, this is not. Let's get rid of that, and let's make Sunday and Monday night the same thing. Small group-based analysis. And pick a product that will work for that. And we won't move this. We'll just keep that there. For sacraments, confirmation, we're going to use Alpha for teens. That gives them the encounter. And then we're going to use Chosen from Ascension Press. That puts meat on it. The kids love Alpha, but even our 7th graders said, yeah, but we need Chosen too. They realize they need some meat. Grade school, this is what I'm saying. Remember I said pick something off the shelf that works? We looked at Ascension Press for First Communion. Didn't like it. We looked at Matt Kelly from up here. We didn't like it. But Matt Kelly has something out that's fairly new called Blessed, First Penance, First Communion. We like this. So as he's doing this, he's pointing them over into the discipleship programs of Life Team and Edge. And our Sunday and our weekly ones and the ones that we have during the summer, we're basically pointing them down here. So all getting them into kind of this discipleship program. So that's what a religious ed program vision looks like, using this to kind of say, how do you take that threshold thing and apply it to religious education? Okay, that's the schedule. We're going to start in September. This is why I go fishing in Montana. This is going to be fasten your seatbelts, okay? The colors are the different phases. Here's our beginning people. We'll start Alpha, walking with purpose, that means you. We don't have to do anything. We're already doing it, but we've got an on-ramp. Formed and similar for the people who are curious and don't want to have to come to our church. Family and youth disciple, this is kind of like the 3rd phases, the men's gospel reflection for the people who are more advanced. And then for our super disciples, we're going to do parish missionary disciples. That's, like I said, that's the 6 people who are going into that program with Catholic leadership. We're going to start a youth missionary team, and we're going to start the small groups and leaders and catechists that I talked about over here. We'll do that through Advent and Christmas. Then in Lent, we're going to do a second Alpha. We're going to maybe do the Ananias strand and call the gifted to their new version coming out of it. And then the key is we're going to do this again and again and again for 3 years. Next year, we take the Disciple Maker Index again, and we see if any of the needles have moved. Okay. How are we doing at St. Monica? You always want to have more baptisms than funerals. With more people coming in than are going out. Okay? And we were doing fine in terms of the baptisms, and then they were the same, and now it seems like baptisms and funerals are about the same. Bottom line, no, not a big change. Weddings, this is the last 6 years, not a really big wedding parish. October count. Well, we literally go through over the course of every single Mass and Sunday, and we count how many people are in the pews. Okay? 6 years ago, 3196 average. This year, 3521. It's an increase of 10%. Had a spike here, but again, a little bit of a growth, but not totally negligible. Number of families, we went from, we increased from this to this. Again, an increase of 28% over 6 years, but if you look at the line, it's not exactly like this. And then new registrations goes up and down. It's been averaging, maybe around 50-ish. We're at 27 so far, so maybe by the end of the year, we're going to have about the same. Nothing stunning, but that's the point. Total collections had a spike this year. Actually, it was a little bit, we were up 3% over 5 years, and it went up this year. Actually, we found out recently this was even more significant because 3 or 4 of my biggest givers, one died, 3 had to go out to other parishes because of work. So this would have been significantly higher. I mean, it was a significant bump. We watched our costs. We also, this is somewhat inflated because we had a DRE that left last year, so that was one salary we didn't have to pay, but still, take that out of it and all of a sudden, okay, why all of a sudden in year 5 did all of a sudden we start seeing a bump in money? Because we're not getting more parishioners, they're being more generous. Walking with Purpose, 2012 we had nobody. $14.99, today $140. That man is you. 2012 we had nothing. Now we have 45. Hospitality Minister. 54 greeters, 20 ushers, 3 new people that said we'll call the new parishioners. And the woman who's running this called me. She said, Father, within the last 2 minutes, I told you about this, in the last 2 months, I've had 20 calls for greeters. I've been talking about hospitality and greeters and telling that story for like 2 years. All of a sudden, there was traction. Parish debt. We had $250,000 when I got there. We owed it to the diocese. We're down to 0. That was a 5-year bond. We ended up paying it off in 2 years, 3 years ahead of time. Like I said, when they added it all up, $1.7 million in deferred maintenance. We did the pledge. They gave us $1.7 million. It looks like we're going to not collect $31,000, 0.18%. That's insane. The average can be up to 20. You can lose 20% of your pledge. And we're at 1.8%. That means that the people at St. Monica have said, this is important and I'm going to continue to give. Okay. Overall projected shortfall is going to be $154,000. So basically at the end, we're going to be able to do everything that we wanted to do and maybe pull about $150,000 out of reserves. We just found that out last week. This made my finance council very happy. And we're asked the question, okay, why is it working? Because something's good happening. We restarted Alpha. There's a new outreach service team. That woman came and said, I'll do it. New financial stewardship team. We were sitting on a big chunk of money. We were sitting on all this. People had been giving to a St. Vincent de Paul fund for the last 5 years. And all of a sudden, I got 3 people came in and gave me like $10,000, $15,000, and $15,000 for Catholic education. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I called her and I said, would you put something together for me? Here is your discipleship team. They put together, they basically made a foundation, called the St. Monica Foundation. And they met for 9 months. And then they started going to the local bars. And they had a Basel Chardonnay and say, how do we make an impact? And should it be local or should it be wider? And who are the people that should be doing it? Should some of them be Catholic? Should some of them be non-Catholic? And they basically came up with a criterion that they were going to give $30,000 to all sorts of charities. Some local, some not. They're going to do that for the next 2 years. They're going to look at the results every quarter. And then what they're going to do is they're going to, 2 years from now, revisit it and say, how is it working or not? And then we had $63,000 that we basically gave to people who are our parishioners, who have kids in Catholic schools. And then we call the principals and say, and if there's nobody that needs it, give it to somebody. What should the parish look like in 5 years? And if we disappear tomorrow, would anybody miss us? Yeah, people are going to start missing us. New Liturgy Committee, 31 ideas proposed. We're going to use the kiosk to measure homily, hymnody, and hospitality. In terms of parish formation, formed offered to the whole parish, symbol on RCIA, as I've said, small group parish debates approach for catechesis. Parish missionary disciples, second cohort. CLI is going to start the Ananias, we're going to work with CLI on that. The Ananias starting next year. Disciple Maker Index, we'll do the second go-around next year. Okay, so lots of stuff going on. All right, and if you saw the dates, it's really only been within the last 2 years. So, how are we doing? Okay, a lot of momentum and evidence. The archdiocese and metrics that they're interested are still somewhat lacking. So I do not come to you saying, we're great, we got the idea, just do what we're doing, we're going to be fine. Because we don't know. Like I talked about my finances, if I get 4 of my biggest givers and they die or leave, our collections are going to go down a lot. When we did the capital campaign, we worked with a company out of Connecticut called Cathedral Canine. The woman said, you have the weirdest parish I ever saw. You have that silent phase and that first phase. She said, Father, 100%, I'm not lying, not 99, 100% of the people that we asked to give something said either yes or I'll give more. I've never seen that. Unfortunately, 72% of the people that we asked are pledging nothing. And we started doing things. New organ, lights, sound system, et cetera, et cetera. We sent a letter out in the second year, a letter out in the third year, and say, maybe there was something, something in your family, it was a rough economy. Would you look at all the wonderful things that we're doing? Would you consider giving? 0. And one woman said, Father, I'm telling you, they do the calculus. I've been at Whole Foods. I heard one mother go, they're not going anywhere, why do I have to give anything? All right, I've got a big chunk of my parishioners, like I said, like 48% give like $13 a week or less in one of the more affluent areas of Philadelphia. Why? They're giving it to the prep school, the grade school, they're giving it to their colleges, they're giving it to the sports programs, they're giving it to Shirley, wherever. They have the list. St. Monica is down here for a huge, huge chunk of my population. Many of them who come to church. Pre-trust, trust, etc. That's where they are. So I do not come to you saying that I have all the answers. This is something that we're doing. Maybe you can grab something from it. Maybe if I come back here in 5 years, I'll show you something different. But this is where we are. And I think maybe this is where a lot of you are. So kind of like St. Augustine, if I can quote the Augustinians. I know a Jesuit guy quoting Augustine is dangerous. Where Augustine said, "With you, I'm a, for you, I'm a bishop. With you, I'm a Christian. For you, I'm a priest. With you, I'm muddling through this like everybody else." And maybe if you can take something here that will help, it will give you a little bit of hope. If there's something where you can come and say, let's just try that a little bit, then my trip out here to the land of Lincoln has not been, has been merited, and I've been delighted to be able to do something for you. So, thanks everyone.